of the biggest topics of debate with RE9 right now are who are these villain-like characters and monsters that we see in the trailer. The man in the chair, the hooded figure, and the mysterious shadow have all been at the center of insane and crazy theories over the past few days. And because of the themes of RE9 focusing on facing the past, most theories seem to focus on returning characters as the main villains of this game. I even posted a poll to get the community's opinions about some of the names that have been making their rounds regarding the man in the chair specifically, and yeah, the results were unsurprisingly split. Anyway, on today's episode of Nerdspace Games, I want to focus on that very topic as I go through just about every single possibility as to who these mysterious villains are. For my own personal theory that I've been sticking with for over a year now, to other insane theories that didn't even cross my mind until recently. I'm breaking down every single possible scenario that I can think of or that I heard about in today's video. Before that though, consider hitting that subscribe button at the end of today's video if you felt like I earned it, as well as dropping a like on today's video if you enjoyed today's topic. I also want to give a quick shout out to all of the different creators I've been talking to that honestly motivated me to do this entire video and post a poll on this channel about it. This list includes Rapid Crafter, Center for Evil, Better Than Starlight, and Conjure Line. Definitely support all of these creators as each of us help each other out all of the time, and I can't thank them enough for all of the support they've given me since becoming a creator myself. Anyway, let's get back to today's video. So I first want to focus on the man in the chair by the fireplace that appears to be talking about the Chosen One, the Ashcroft, in the trailer. Reason being as this is the character that appears to be the true main villain of Resident Evil 9, and while I do believe that the hooded figure is possibly the same guy, for the purpose of today's video we'll split these two characters up for discussion's sake. Anyway, the man in the chair is the one that has been talked about the most with so many theories as to who he can be, and I of course want to start with the theory that I've been talking about for over a year now. I think this is Oswald E. Spencer. Yeah, ever since the release of Shadows of Rose, this is a theory that I've been crafting, and it's something that I've been talking about for as long as I've been a content creator, honestly. I'll go over circumstances as to how I believe Spencer is alive and well, but first let's take a look at the pieces of evidence that eagle-eyed fans have noticed about this character that points to Spencer. First off, the overall vibe of this man instantly screams Spencer. The way that he talks is all very stoic-like, which is very in line with who Spencer is.
I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
The room that we find him sitting in, complete with a fireplace and gramophone, again also screams to Spencer's personality and taste. But most notably, from behind, this character even looks like a younger Oswald E. Spencer. His hairstyle in particular matches the image of Spencer we see in Resident Evil Resistance. Now let's address the elephant in the room. How the hell could this be Spencer when Wesker put a damn hole through the man's chest? Well, that is something that I have talked about multiple times on this channel, starting all the way back in February of 2024. My theory focuses on the details that we learn in Resident Evil Village, and more specifically the DLC, Shadows of Rose. In that game, we learned that Spencer and Mother Miranda knew each other, and in fact, it was Mother Miranda's research that ultimately motivated Spencer to pursue his own dreams of creating the next stage of human evolution in which he would be a god among gods, essentially. This means that Spencer was familiar with the Megamycete, and that he was probably familiar with the hive mind network within the Megamycete. So here's my theory, and it's kinda crazy. Anybody that's connected to the Megamycete will join its network upon their death. We get proof of this with Ethan, Mother Miranda, and Eve all appearing in Shadows of Rose DLC. And we also know that it's possible to revive someone from the Megamycete network thanks to the entire plot of Resident Evil Village. Mother Miranda's entire motivation is to take her daughter's consciousness that is within the Megamycete and place it into a suitable vessel. The fact that this is even possible gives us exactly the information that we need to know about how Spencer could still be alive, sort of. With that being said, obviously something went wrong with reviving his consciousness into a new host, because in the trailer he appears to be looking for a chosen one of some sort. I've seen a lot of people throw out some theories about the daylight cure in Resident Evil Outbreak. Since Alyssa and her daughter Grace appear to be a key part in Resident Evil 9, it's possible that Spencer needs someone that has bonded with daylight in order to cure himself of whatever side effects he's experiencing after being reborn. Whatever the case is, I truly believe that Oswald E. Spencer is the main villain of Resident Evil 9, and out of all the possible candidates, he's the most likely in my book. I mean, come on, what better villain to bring into the picture for a Resident Evil game that focuses on the past than the man that literally started it all? Well, there's actually one other possible candidate that meets this requirement. Yeah, probably the theory that most fans are hoping is true is that the man in the chair is in fact Albert Wesker, and honestly, I could totally see it. I mean, for one, Albert Wesker is easily the most iconic villain of the entire series. Hell, he's probably the most iconic villain in video games period, right there on the same level as someone like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy. So yeah, as a fan favorite and someone that people have been begging Capcom to somehow resurrect, sure, Albert Wesker makes a lot of sense, and he's definitely someone that ties in with the theme of Resident Evil 9. In the trailer, the man in question is wearing a very similar jacket to Wesker's midnight jacket from Resident Evil 5. Also, this mysterious man appears to have something off about his appearance despite us not getting a really good look at him. Like he appears to be disfigured, burnt, or he has some sort of infection that's breaking out due to some sort of side effects from a virus. If that's the case, maybe this is Wesker, and what we're seeing is the side effects of two different things that happened to Wesker. The overdose from the suppressant from Ouroboros, and also the fact that he was burning in a volcano the last time we saw him. As for why he's after Grace, he could be in a similar situation to what I said about Spencer. Maybe Wesker needs someone's blood that bonded with the Daylight Cure to help counter the unstable virus inside of him. However, despite saying all of this, there are also key things about this character in the trailer that doesn't feel like Wesker. The hairstyle doesn't really match Wesker's hairstyle, and the voice and accent does not sound like Wesker at all, not even close. But considering how important he is to the Resident Evil universe, I wouldn't put it past Capcom retconning his death in some way. Rather, he somehow regenerated over time after being blown up in a volcano, or he cloned himself. It's possible that Wesker could be this mysterious villain. So moving on to one of the villains of the Resident Evil universe that we know very little about, but has played an important part in the background of recent RE games, is Brandon Bailey. If you're wondering who the hell he is, don't worry, you're not alone. When I posted a poll about the different villain theories out there, the most frequent comment I saw from you guys was, who the hell is Brandon Bailey? Well, believe it or not, Brandon Bailey was first mentioned all the way back in Resident Evil 5, and he's kind of been involved behind the scenes in just about every single incident in the Resident Evil universe. Courtesy of files found throughout the game, we learned that Brandon Bailey was a chief researcher that was the assistant to James Marcus, and he was also the one to have found Stairway of the Sun and brought it back to Marcus to research. You know, the same flower responsible for ultimately leading to the creation of the progenitor virus? Yeah, that same flower. Anyway, this ultimately led to Marcus and Bailey going to Spencer to help fund their research on the virus. When their samples ran dry, Bailey would be sent alone to retrieve more samples of the Stairway of the Sun and ultimately be in charge of managing this African facility while Marcus continued his research in Raccoon City until his death. Although not known to Bailey at the time, this was a way for Spencer to separate the two, and after Marcus completed most of his research, Spencer would have him killed and assume control over his findings. Anyway, Bailey on the other hand would become an important part of interest in the coming years when we eventually learned that he was responsible for finding the current big bad organization of the Resident Evil universe, the Connections. This is the same organization that, alongside Mother Miranda, ultimately experimented with the mold created from the Megamycete to eventually create E001, aka Evelyn. A document in Resident Evil 5 claims that Spencer had Bailey murdered with the rest of the team in the African branch following the outbreak in Raccoon City. However, the BSAA reports that as of 2017, there is no official confirmation of Bailey's death, and until proven otherwise, they'll assume that his survival is a possibility. Now, outside of that, we have nothing on who Bailey is. I know that was a long explanation just talking about who Bailey is, but since we haven't seen what Bailey actually looks like, the trailer itself doesn't give us much to go on with this theory. The reason why this theory is even out there is because of Bailey's involvement with the current big bad organization, the Connections, and the fact that he's one of Umbrella's final big researchers that could still be alive in the Resident Evil universe. Also, since we mentioned him, I'll knock this theory out of the way as well, as I've seen people talking about this in the comments of previous videos of mine, but James Marcus is another theory that people have. I'm just gonna say it right here and right now, no way in hell James Marcus is the villain. He was already an unlikable villain in his own game, Resident Evil 0, and even if they were to bring him back, let's not forget that what we saw in RE0 wasn't James Marcus, but rather the Queen Leech with his memories. Not that it matters, but that makes his character a little less interesting to bring back than, say, I don't know, Bailey, who honestly has way more potential than Marcus ever had, in my opinion. Just saying. And probably the most likely scenario as to who this mysterious man in the chair is, and the person that most fans seem to agree on, is that this guy is actually just a brand new character. Yeah, I know, a lot of us have been making insane theory videos about this guy, but there's a very strong possibility that he's just a brand new villain. I mean, when you think about every single Resident Evil game since, what, RE6? Almost every single villain introduced was a new character that we have never heard of. What's to say Resident Evil 9 doesn't go down that same route? Now, I will say that the thing that is working against this scenario is the fact that clearly Capcom went out of their way to cover this guy's face. On top of that, the theme of this game is all about the past and coming full circle. Well, if this is indeed a new villain, then that kind of contradicts the whole theme of RE9, doesn't it? Unless, one theory that's also been making the rounds is the fact that while this might be a new character, perhaps it's someone who is connected to a bigger and more iconic villain of the series. For example, this could be Spencer's son or Brandon Bailey's nephew. Going this route allows this villain to be a new character while at the same time it connects them to the theme of the past coming to haunt the main characters of the game. I'll be honest, this is probably the theory that's most likely, but it's also my least favorite. Anyway, that's all the theories I have for the man in the chair, so let's move on to the next potential villain in the trailer, the Hooded Man. Now, for the Hooded Man, there's a few different theories around this character. Now, honestly, I've gone back and forth about who this guy could be. When I first saw the trailer and I did my trailer breakdown, I thought it was just a younger version of the man in the chair, but during the flashback sequences featuring Alyssa Ashcroft. However, other fans have pointed out that the guy that the Hooded Man attacks looks like an FBI agent. Now, one insane theory that's been going around I don't actually 100% agree with, but I totally see why people feel this way, is that this guy is Leon S. Kennedy. I think the reason why this whole theory came together is because of a tweet by Duskellum in which he said that Leon was in the trailer. Of course, this could have been a reference to one of the voices that we heard during the Raccoon City shots, but other fans believe that this is a hint towards the Hooded Man being Leon. Obviously, this is a very big deal because the trailer leads us to believe that this is a villain considering that he killed an FBI agent, and the flashback sequences to Alyssa's death keeps showing his face. However, there are two theories that could explain why Leon is doing this. One, Leon is in a similar situation as Jill Valentine was in Resident Evil 5. In that game, Jill was moving around and acting as a villain thanks to a mind control device. And while I doubt Capcom would use a similar method, it's hard to ignore the similarities between Jill Valentine and this Hooded Man. Another theory that could explain this situation is if this Hooded Man is not actually a villain. Now, I'm not the first one to mention this, as this conversation happened while I was talking to Conjure Line about the Hooded Man, but anyways, he threw out the idea that maybe the FBI is corrupted in the same way that the BSAA is. For example, maybe the Hooded Man is attacking the FBI agent in the trailer to save Grace from him. I know that's a stretch, but I actually kind of like this theory, and while I don't believe it, it does sound a little interesting. This of course would explain why Leon is this Hooded Man and why he's doing this, because he's not the villain, he's just fighting the real enemies of the game. Of course, this doesn't really explain why Leon looks infected, similar to how he looked when Las Plagas started to move throughout his body, but it at least explains why he's appearing to be the villain at first glance. Also, one last thing I'll say about the Leon is the Hooded Man theory is that a lot of people have compared his facial characteristics to the Hooded Man, and there is a striking resemblance for sure. Still, I don't think this is Leon, but hey, I'd love to hear your opinions down below. And one of the funniest theories I've heard is that this Hooded Man is Lucas Baker. Listen, I'm just gonna say this right now, I don't think this is Lucas Baker. For a few reasons actually. The most obvious is that we saw him die in Resident Evil 7's DLC, not a hero. Though I will say that the same could be said about Jack Baker in the main campaign, so I'll give you that. The second reason is that I personally don't see how or why Lucas would be involved in RE9's story. It just doesn't make sense to me. I get that the hooded figure gives off Lucas vibes, but yeah, story-wise, I'm just not feeling it. I mean, I guess the hooded figure could be Lucas during Alyssa's flashback sequences. I mean, Lucas did die in 2017, and Alyssa was last seen alive in 2016, so he could have killed her before his death. Maybe she was investigating the missing persons around the Baker estate, and Renwood is actually somewhere nearby. In fact, perhaps Renwood could have been where Lucas was using as a home base for himself while he kidnapped people to bring them back to the Baker estate. Again, it's a stretch, and I don't buy it, but this video is about weighing every single possibility, and believe it or not, this is a theory that has been making the rounds lately. Okay, so let's move on to the final villain of the trailer that has a lot of people debating right now. We turn our attention to the mysterious shadow that we see crawling down a hallway wall near the end of the trailer. I've already covered my thoughts about what I think it is, so let's start there. I think it's the Suspended, aka Regis Licker from the Outbreak games. The way it moves reminds me of how a Licker would move. The hallway here specifically reminds me of the hallway that we fight the Suspended in. And there's been other hints throughout the trailer, like the cop zombie, that point to the fact that we might see flashbacks of Alyssa in not only Redwood Hotel, but during the events of Resident Evil Outbreak as well. So yeah, my money is on the Regis Licker, but there's two other theories I've heard from other people, and honestly, I actually like both of those theories as well. One of those theories is that this is a mutated version of Lisa Trevor from Resident Evil Remake. For those that don't know, Lisa Trevor is the daughter of George Trevor, the man that built the Spencer Mansion. Because of George and his family being aware of the Spencer Mansion to begin with, they were all detained and experimented on in different ways. Lisa specifically got the worst of it as she bonded with the strands better than her mother, and she essentially became a T-virus cocktail in which Umbrella would test multiple different strains of the T-virus on her, basically turning her into a terrifying monster. The reason why people think this is Lisa Trevor is because of the chain shackled to the Shadow's wrist, therefore reminding a lot of us of the sound that we heard when Lisa Trevor was chasing us. Add that to the fact that Lisa Trevor was never officially killed, but left for dead at the Spencer Mansion by Wesker before it exploded, and the fact that if anybody could survive a massive bomb to Raccoon City, it would be her, then yeah. I can totally see why people are on the Lisa Trevor train for this shadow monster. But honestly, my favorite theory, while not the one that I personally believe in the most, is the fact that the mysterious shadow is actually Alyssa Ashcroft. Actually, some people think it's Grace later in the game, but I doubt that. Alyssa, on the other hand, makes a lot of sense. During the trailer, we never really hear about how Alyssa was murdered. We only know that she was killed while investigating a case at the Renwood Hotel. Well, this theory is suggesting that someone somehow obtained Alyssa's body, and I'm guessing they experimented on her to the point where she became the monster that we saw in the trailer. The most notable trait that some fans have pointed out is the hair on the monster somewhat resembles Alyssa's hairstyle. Again, I think that's a stretch, but honestly, the theory does make sense, sort of. Assuming that this mysterious man in the chair is after Alyssa and then eventually Grace because of daylight cells in their blood, then I would have put it past this man to steal Alyssa's body so that he could experiment on it in a way to retrieve samples of the daylight. The result could have led to the abomination that we saw in the trailer, and man, can you honestly imagine that? Grace having to fight her own mother and put her down in order to survive. That's a tough moment that would be extremely impactful to watch. Still, my money is on it being the suspended during a flashback sequence to Raccoon City, but honestly, I'm kind of rooting for this theory more. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Nerd Space Games. Hit up the comments and let me know what you think about the many theories in today's video. Who do you think is the mysterious man in the chair? Do you think Leon has joined the dark side and he's the hooded man? And what about the mysterious shadow at the end of the trailer? Is it Lisa Trevor, the suspended, Alyssa, or something else completely? Let me know all of your thoughts down below. But thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.